right, let's get started with using a form for direct instruction. So this would be you as a teacher delivering content to your students. I'm going to show you one way that you can do that in a form. So usually when you give direct instruction, you are providing kind of a tutorial to students. You're giving them steps to go through a process, especially in math, science, even ELA. You're giving them the core of the content that you're covering in that lesson. So a great way to do that in a form, first start a new form. I've already got an example pulled up, and make sure you give it a title, whatever your content is that you're covering. This one is actually about multiplying fractions. I'm going to add that to the title. I want to make sure that this title up here goes with what the form says, because this was how it's going to show up in my drive. So I want to be able to quickly find that. Okay, so here we have our questions. I have actually selected this to be a quiz because I want them to do some practice problems, and I'll get to that in a second. So you don't have to make this a quiz though. It can literally just be you providing them with tutorial instructions. It could be video, it could be images like diagrams, it could be step-by-step directions. Anything that you want to provide them in that direct instruction piece can just be put in here and be sent out to everybody. But this is an example that I'm going to show you that I've done with multiplying fractions. So first I want to collect their name. I want to know who's filling this out. And I want to basically have an attendance form for who has actually gone through and done this form and filled it out. And then the next thing, and I made that required, by the way. So click that required on. So the next thing I want to do is just dive right into the direct instructions. So I tell them, watch this video. And right here, you could actually add a caption. Right there, I selected that to include what this video is about. I've written that there. You can also write it here in the instructions, but this will give them directions and it tells them what it's about. Here's the video. I inserted this video by clicking right here, add video. After the name, I just clicked add video. I entered the URL for YouTube. I selected it, and there it is. And so you'll see that it asks for a title here. It does not show a caption right away. You have to go here and select caption if you want to give further information. And you'll also see that my video is centered on my example. And the way that you do that is click those three dots and you click center align right there. Okay, and of course you can change the video to something else if you want to change it. It's right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this because I already have it here. Okay, so they're gonna watch this video and then they're going to continue to the next section. I've sectioned out my direct instruction into parts so that they know what they're doing next. And I can give kind of a title to each little chunk that they're doing. So they watch a video about multiplying fractions. And then we're going to go into just giving direct step-by-step how to multiply fractions. And so this section is just covering the steps to multiplying fractions. So right here in the description, you could say, please write these notes in your notebook, or whatever it is that they're doing to take notes for your class. You could give them those instructions there. So step one, all I did after I've added a section, and the way that you do that, so after the video, you add a section here, you click that, it gives me this title right here. So I filled that out. After I filled out my title for this section, all I needed to do was just type text, and I wanted it broken up. And so I just hit the text box here, and it gives me an option for a title and a description. I will say that the description text is very tiny and hard to read, and it doesn't separate paragraphs. You can't hit enter and get a new line break in these forms. So the best thing to do is just add a new text box each time you want to chunk something up. So I just want my steps chunked separately. So I just hit a new text box every time. Okay, so step one, step two, step three, step four. These are the steps to solving multiplication with fractions, just basic multiplying fractions, okay? And then once they fill or write those notes, they will go to the next section. So I added another section here, and it's going to be practice problems. And right here, you could write, please show your work on your paper in whatever they're doing this on, notebook or whatever. And then they will read the question. And right here, in order to get this image, I'll remove it so you can see. So it says, what should you do first to solve this problem? Now, fractions are really difficult to type in any kind of online resource, digital resource. So I just like to get an image of a worksheet that I use, and I save it to my computer files in the pictures. And then I just click on that and upload it. And now you can see it right here. It's very tiny, so I can adjust it. I can make it bigger so they can see it. I can also center align it if I want to, but I'm okay with it being on the left. And then I just asked a multiple choice question. What should they do first whenever they're trying to solve this problem? And I give them options here. I also add common mistakes, like finding a common denominator is a common mistake that students would make when solving multiplication with fractions for the first time. So I add that as a choice. And then right here, the reason I made this a quiz, okay, is because I do want them to be able to find the correct answer when they're finished, and they can see a review of how they did on these practice problems. But notice that I did not assign point values, okay? Because I don't want them to get discouraged based on point values. This is just a learning process. It's the direct instruction, so this is not something that should penalize them. So in the answer key, I just select the correct answer. I assign no points, and I'm done. That's just my suggestion, assigning no points. You can, of course, assign points. Right here, you'll see that you have the option to shuffle if it's a multiple choice question. So you could shuffle the order there. I selected that because I don't have an option for all of the above or none of the above, in which case I would not want to shuffle it because then it wouldn't make sense. So I'm going to shuffle those. You could further give a description. You can go to section based on the answer, and we'll get into that later on. But for this, for direct instruction, we don't necessarily need that for the basic one. Okay, and then here, what is the best answer to this problem? You could do short answer where they actually type their answer in. You could do a file upload where they have to take a picture of their work and upload it into this field. Then you could go and manually and review that. But I just want time saving, efficient. Let's see if they got it just from this. So I give them options. I select the answer, 0 points, and so on. Now I'm going to add another question. You can keep going with practice problems. I usually do 3 or 4 or 3 to 5 practice problems. And then I can just share this with the class through Google Classroom and send it their way. Just make sure that you preview it first before you send it. Okay, so I know that the name is required. That's good. I watch the video, I click here, and then I hit next after I watch the video. Here are my step-by-step how to solve multiplying fractions. I will write these in my notebook. And then I will do my practice problems. And I forgot to update this, so I know that that's the answer. And then I submit it. Oh, let's say I get the answer wrong here. Okay, submit. I will view my score, which of course there's no point value attached to it, but it will show me exactly what I've completed, what I got right, and what I got wrong. So I could go to the teacher after this and say, I missed number 2 because I forgot to simplify, and I could even ask for a description later as the teacher to the student. Why do you think you missed that? It starts a conversation with you and the student. So that's one way to use direct instruction in your class. So now I want to talk to you about how to transform your direct instruction using forms by making a playlist. Okay, so some things that you want to consider when making a playlist. A playlist is basically a set of information, and it can be tons of digital or non-digital resources and activities for your students to progress through learning the content. So it's think about your playlist on your phone. Okay, you've selected specific things for people to look at or to listen to, and then they can just kind of groove through the playlist, or they can shuffle it. So sometimes there's a lot of voice and choice involved in a playlist. Um, some things to know about it: it's great for um, personalizing the learning of the student. But not all of them are personalized. And the direct instruction form that I showed you just now is not something that was personalized for any reason. It was just basic um, direct instruction, video, steps, notes, and practice problems that I could send to the entire class. However, if you want to personalize it and you want to maybe change the path up a little bit, one way you can do it is to edit the practice problems. You can edit the video and share it to different students who you select through Google Classroom. Another thing you can do is use the section breaks here, and you can personalize um, kind of the path that they take. And here's an example of long division, teaching a student long division with direct instruction. So right here, it's going to start with just estimating how many times something can go into something. Based on their answer here, it tells them where to go next. So if they get it correct, then they would move on to the next section about multiplication. If they get it wrong, then they know they need to go to a review estimation section. And so on and so forth. So it kind of takes them on different paths that way, to really assess what they individually need to learn and review. So it would take them here to review estimation if they got it wrong, and then they would redo a different problem after they have watched this video. And answer the question. And then, of course, if they still get it wrong, then they certainly need to meet with the teacher. And it does tell them that too when they're finished. Down here, feeling lost. So it would send them here if they got it wrong a second time. So you can kind of say, all right, you've missed 2 questions and it's time for you to meet with the teacher. Another thing is, let's say that a student knows how to do all of this already and they have mastered it, but they're, with time constraints, you've got to think about how long it's taking each student to work. So you definitely want to have an extension activity for kids that have already mastered the content that this lesson is directed for. So you've got an extension activity here, and you've got ways to upload work here. They can insert a link with a short answer, and you can have that it's a URL here. Another way that they could do it is where you see file upload right here. You would select file upload, and then it's going to say, are you sure you trust these people? And you'll say, yes, I trust them. They're my students. And then you can select exactly what type of files they're going to upload. Okay. So those are 2 ways that they can upload files, especially if they're showing their work and submitting it in a form. Something else to note about playlists is that they're great for kind of increasing in rigor as you move through them. So it could elevate your DOK levels, depth of knowledge levels, from start to finish, or Bloom's taxonomy levels. So you would kind of increase that rigor as you move forward through the playlist. That's another thing that you could do with a playlist. Something else you can do is like assign points for completing things as you move through the playlist. And this would kind of help if you don't want students to only stay at the basic levels. And let's say level 1 questions are worth 1 or 2 points, and they need to get up to 8 points, then they would need to definitely move farther through those higher levels of rigor in order to get more points. So you would kind of be forcing them to try harder problems. And of course, you also want to give them the chance to have voice and choice. So there might be a must do and a may do section, where you say, okay, you have to watch this video, but you can create your own video to show your understanding of this process, or you can answer these problems on a worksheet and submit that file. So just provide your students with voice and choice throughout their direct instruction is another way that you can personalize the playlist. One of the great things about these playlists, especially using forms, is that you can really get a good pulse for how long it's taking students to work through things. They get to work at their own pace, which is awesome. You need to think about maybe inserting checkpoints with kids, especially if it's a longer playlist, more in depth, kind of unit worth playlist. You definitely want checkpoints to be built in with a student. And then, you could use this in a flipped classroom where they're doing this direct instruction form before they even get to your class. And that way, in class, you can jump right into more in depth conversations. You can jump right into harder problems to solve together and talk about the why and the where and the how and the who and all that. So it's a great thing to try in your classroom, building playlists with forms through direct instruction.